Today, we're supposed to learn, again, like we did yesterday, how to solve, they're called literal equations, L-I-T-E-R-A-L, but it's solving for the variable, one variable in terms of others. So it's not going to be anything new today. It's going to be a continuation of what we worked on yesterday. And the first thing I'd like to do before we proceed and go forward is to take a step back and look at last night's homework. So I'd like you to look at these three answers and see how you did. Now, how many people got number one right? Okay. How many people got number two right? Okay. And how many people got number three right? All right. A couple of things. First off, number three. I know the answer looks weird, 43 over 9. Leave it. Don't try to convert it to a decimal unless they tell you to. If they tell you to, they will probably be letting you use a calculator on the problem. More kids make a mistake going from 43 over 9 to a decimal. And the answer 43 over 9 they have correct, and then they try to go one step further, and that messes them up. Just leave it like that. You're good to go. Number two is the question that most hands went up on. And number two is a same-side situation. And what I've noticed on your papers, your quizzes, is that you're doing really well, for the most part, on a same-side situation. But there are some problems on an opposite side situation, like number one. And it was not surprising to me that there were some hands that did not go up. Look, here's the theory behind the opposite operation techniques. If you notice that the variables are on opposite sides, or the numbers a little later in the problem, we always like to start with the variables. If you notice that the variables are on opposite sides, and what we mean by that is opposite sides of this line, because the line is formed by the equal sign running down the middle, then you have to do opposite operations. So I noticed that the W's are on, clearly they're on opposite sides. So opposite side, opposite operation. So what kind of 4W is this? It is negative. So I do the opposite and I do plus 4W. Leah, I think on your paper on the quiz, I might be wrong, maybe it wasn't your paper, but I think somehow you combined, or someone did, it might not have been Leah, the letters with the numbers, and they came up with like 22W, or the number 22. That can't be. Variables go with variables, numbers go with numbers. You can't mix the numbers and the variables. The whole idea with an equation is to get letters on its side of the equation, variables, and then numbers on the other side. So when you're all done doing your manipulations, you have one of the variable and just a single number, and that tells you what that variable weighs, if you will, the value of that variable. So that's what I'm doing here. 5W plus 4W is 9W. Now, there's no more variables on this side, so that's a good thing. Now the numbers are on opposite sides, and it's ironic that you have been doing this since 6th grade, and you don't question it. You're like, oh, minus 27 plus 27. It's obvious. But it's the same exact thing with the variables. Minus 4W plus 4W. Same exact idea, except now you can't forget that the variables have to go with the variables. So now I have 9W equals 45. I divide by 9, and I get W as 5. Here's my 1W and my one number on each side of the scale, so I know what a W is worth. Questions? Okay. Now, let's go to, I didn't do all of the homework answers, but I did a chunk of them. So let's go take a look, if we can, at the next group. The next group is pretty much review, but I'm going to pause at this point and let you take a look and see how you did on those. You know, these are the ones that have been popping up on tests and so on and so forth. You can pretty much rest assured that you will have questions like numbers 1 through 10 on virtually every homework this year. Constantly going back to it, constantly making sure you're remembering this, that it's at the forefront of your understanding. And then when you see it on the Regents state assessment test or your final exam at the end of the year, and yes, you can opt out of the final exam, of the Regents, pardon me, you can opt out of the state assessment exam. Did anybody here opt out last year? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, lots of kids seem to be opting out. I don't have any problem with you if you do that. But you can't opt out of the final. That you got to take. And these questions will be on the final, so we want to make sure you're ready for those. Okay? Any questions, 5 through 10? How many people feel very comfortable when you see questions like 5 through 10? Like you have a strong sense of direction? Raise your hand if you feel comfortable. Okay, Eric, you're not comfortable?
Not for number 8.
Number 8, okay. Well, what's anything to the 0 power?
1.
Good. And then a negative exponent.
It's just simple.
So 2 to the negative, oh, yeah. Yeah. 2 to the negative 3 is 1 over 2 to the positive 3. And 2 to the third is 8. So 1 plus 1/8 is 1 and 1/8. So that's all that comes from. Anybody else? Questions? Okay. I made a bit of a boo-boo here. This answer's right. I don't know why I said something's wrong with it, but it's not, it's right. Probably the night before there was probably something wrong, and then I made an adjustment, and now it's right. Number 13, is negative 2 minus 7 negative 5?
How is it right if there's no negative 5?
It should be positive. When I divide by a negative, I change the first sign. Okay? Or, you know, some people like to say a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Some people say it that way. I don't like to do it, but some people do. Number 13 is wrong. I have 2 negatives, and I have 7 more negatives. What do I have altogether? 9 negatives. So it should be negative 9. Good. All right. Next up, there's one more section of problems we do. Here's one. The rule is to add exponents. Patrick, so 4 to the 5 times 4 to the negative 7 is 4 to the negative 2. Negative exponent. Reciprocal, so that's 1 over 4 to the 2. This is just like the one before, remember? So that's 1 over 16. Okay, are we good? Okay, and this brings us to what we talked about yesterday. Certain code words. I snorted, look at that. When I was growing up, my dad, he worked on the Long Island Railroad, and we would hardly ever eat dinner as a family. Any of you guys like that? Where you kind of always eating dinner on the run, you might eat dinner alone, or maybe just mom and the kids, dad's not around, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we were all the time growing up, because dad was always out trying to make some money. You know, he didn't have the best job in the world, and then he had to work a lot of overtime. And because when you're younger on the job, the way the railroad works is the senior people get to choose the best jobs. So he used to constantly get kicked into working overnight. So he would go to work at like 4 in the afternoon. And then he would get home at 1 or 2 in the morning, and then he would go to sleep and so on. So at best, we ate dinner once a week together, like usually on a Saturday or something. And every time we ate dinner, I remember one time, my dad loved me. He never said it. He did love me. He said it when he woke up from a coma after 10 weeks. That's when he said it. A couple of months before he died. Now, I always knew that he loved me. And I always knew that he appreciated everybody in his family. However, he had like the worst way of trying to show it. Do you have a parent like that? Like they can't show you? Oh, I felt so bad for my mom sometimes. My mom's a good cook, and she would like cook these dinners. You ever got a mom that's a good cook? Right? And you see your mom struggling over the stove, right? Like she's working really, really hard. I gotta tell you, if my wife cooks a dinner for me, and it tastes like garbage, I smile and go, thank you, honey. I appreciate the meal. It's so good. I will never look at my wife and go, this tastes like crap. I'll never do that as long as I live. I will smile and swallow. Now, my dad, at the end of every meal, he'd always look at my mom and go, you know, honey, that was a great meal, but. There was always a but in there, and it drove me crazy. So finally I said to him, I said, Pop, why do you have to say but? Can't you just leave it at that was a great meal, period? End the conversation. That was a great effort on the test, period, right? We don't have to put the, but you could have done 5 points better. You know what I mean? It's that last sentence that drives you nuts. It makes you want to slam your head into the wall. And my dad never meant bad. Right, well, all right, my dad never meant badly at me. Never, ever, ever. But he just didn't know how to make his point. A friend of mine was a great kid. She used to say to me all the time, she goes, you know, it's all in the delivery. you can make the same point. If you deliver it well, it's okay. And if you deliver it poorly, like my dad used to, you had a bad side of things. So you had to get used to it. So we get these teacher evaluations every year where they write us up. And they either write you up for good or bad. It's not like if you get written up, you're automatically bad. It's not like a referral. And a lot of times we knew in the beginning, if they started the sentence off with something like, Miss Savino is a fine young teacher. She shows lots of promise and can be exceptional in everything she does. But you knew that as soon as you read that word but, the hammer was coming down. Something bad was coming in that report somewhere. So, likewise, I want you to understand. Look at the directions on number 17 and 18. Cheyenne, what do the directions for 17 say?
Solve for M.
Excellent. Lizzie, what do the directions for 18 say?
Solve for H.
Excellent. Patrick, what do you notice they have in common?
N.
What did the directions say for 17 again?
Solve for N.
What did the directions say for 18?
Solve for H.
What do they both have in them? Two words. What two words are in both of them? Solve for. Just like when my dad said but, he was going to put something in the meal down. Just like that teacher report, when it says but, something negative was coming. You know what they said about me once in one of mine? They said that I was a fantastic teacher, but one of the tiles in my ceiling was crooked. And it wasn't in this classroom, it was in another classroom in the high school years ago. And I burst out laughing. I'm like, you gotta write that? It wasn't even my classroom, like I traveled to another teacher's classroom. I just sit down. And then I looked at someone who I've been teaching with, and they said, listen, Bob, they always gotta write something negative, so just smile and sign the paper. All right, so solve for M, solve for H. Solve for is common to both of them. When you see that phrase solve for, you gotta go like, whoop! Pay attention. When it says solve for M, that means the answer better say M equals. If it says solve for H, what do you think the answer has to say? H equals. If the answer says solve for pants, the answer better say pants equals. Very good. Now, solve for M. So what I do is I want to get M all by itself. I want it to say M equals. You watching me now? First I got to, it's just like solving regular equations. I attack the plus or the minus. That says plus B. I do minus B. Y minus B equals mx. But I got to get M by itself because it says solve for M. So here's my M by itself. I divide by x, y minus B over x. Now I hit the next one. The next one says solve for what? H. So what do I want it to say? H equals. So to get H by itself, the first thing I have to do is I have to get rid of this 2L. Notice the 2L is positive, so I do minus 2L. I can't do P minus 2L, so I just write it. It is what it is. Don't try to combine it. Equals 2H, then divide by 2, P minus 2L over 2. Okay? Questions? All right. So now I actually want to work a little bit backwards on today's lesson. You know, we kind of do the same thing every time. But what I want to do is I want to go to this part of today's lesson, and then I want to go back and give you the answers to the do it in a couple of minutes. But first, I really want to focus on making sure that we have these things understood. Notice what the directions say here. Ready? In each of these two equations below, what, everybody? Solve for x. What does that mean to you when it says solve for x? Make it say what? X equals. That's your job. So, I want you to do this one first, and I want you to do this one second, and make both of them say x equals at the end. Go ahead. Leah, don't let me forget this. I just have to look up the grade in a couple of minutes. I forgot to look before. I'll probably end up doing it at the end of the period. Alright, so I think when you look at the first one, you're probably gonna say, man, it seems really easy, but my answer is really weird. Okay, so let's go with that one first.
Not too.
So, minus 3, right? We're attacking that plus or minus first. Die. 2x equals 7, divide by 2. X equals 7 over 2. Now, a lot of kids feel very uncomfortable with an answer like this, and they want to change it. You can, but you don't get any more points for changing it. And a lot of times, kids get it wrong converting to a decimal, just like on the homework from last night. So if you wrote 3.5, excellent. If you wrote 3.5, excellent. I'm willing to bet. Well, this only has 12 kids in this class, or 11 kids in the class. If it was a class of 31, I'll guarantee you at least 1 or 2 kids wrote 3.1. That's wrong. And that's why I worry about kids when they convert it. If I were you, I would leave it 7 over 2. That's a great way to express that answer. The only way I would convert it is if it was multiple choice, and then all of the choices were converted forms of 7 over 2. Then I would do that. Okay. Next, I want to get x by itself because it says solve for x. So first I have to attack the plus or the minus. So that gives me yx equals k plus 5. Okay? So yx equals k plus 5. Is the x by itself yet?
No.
No. What's stopping the x from being by itself?
The
The y. Y is being multiplied by x, so I need to divide by y. And there's my answer. X equals k plus 5 over y. Okay? Yeah, it is what it is. All right? Any questions about that, guys? Are we looking good? Okay, so let's try a couple more here. This time in each problem, I'll tell you what variable to solve for. Try the first one. First one says solve for D. If it says solve for D, what do you have to make it say? D equals. Go ahead. In a few seconds. Okay, so I wanted to say D equals, so what do I attack first? What is it? Annabella?
And you make it add to C.
You stumbled over your words there a little bit. Do the opposite. Attack the minus n by doing plus n. Die. C plus n equals pi d. Is that d by itself yet?
No.
No, and the pi is being multiplied by the d. So what do I have to do to account for that? Everybody? Divide by pi. And I know that's weird because, I mean, when in math do you do that? But we're starting to get into higher levels. So we multiply, divide, and subtract like everything on the face of the earth. All right? So don't be too uncomfortable with that. D equals C plus n over pi. Is that a weird looking answer? Absolutely. It's the right answer too. Okay? As you get older and you take more and more algebra, you'll get answers that are like, you'll look at it and go, what is this, like hieroglyphics? But it is accurate when you say it. All right. Just like the one for homework last night that we talked about a little while ago. But this time I don't say solve for H, I say solve for L. Do that one, and then in the next one it says solve for H. Do that one as well. Oh, don't go doing that. I think you have like a torture me thing when you come in the room every day. Cheyenne says, I'm going to yawn at least once. I'm going to get him to yawn in front of the whole class.
No, you got me on it.
No, Cheyenne has you. Through me. But it's Cheyenne's fault. It's probably going, no, it's not. Never my fault. Oh. Okay, I'm looking on papers, and it looks like we're pretty much done here, so I think I can give you these answers. Okay? So the first one says solve for L. As soon as it says solve for L, what does that mean to do in your mind? Make it say L equals, very good. All right, so first I gotta get rid of this 2h then, because it's on the same side as the L. So I'll do minus 2h, and as strange as this looks, I get P minus 2h equals 2L. Is the L all by itself yet? No, what do you gotta do to get it by itself? What? Divide by what? Divide by 2. Die, 2. So I get L equals P minus 2h over 2. Good? Oh, was this payback? I was doing so well till you two started.
Hey, I said you yawn. Can you stop yawning?
It's all Cheyenne's fault, right? Every day she comes in the room like,
And I did.
look at me, I'm so quiet, I'm so quiet.
And then she gets tired.
How come you're yawning in this class? Do you do the same thing in the others? Because most kids think this is an exciting class. Okay, you do it in the others too. All right. Solve for H, talk to me, Gabby. What's solve for H mean? What do you have to make it say? Patrick's got his hand up like, man, I know the answer to this now. He picked on me before, so I know this answer. Patrick, help her out. H equals. This says solve for H. You better darn well be thinking H equals, right, Gabby? What does solve for H mean? Gabby? Very good. So right now the H is being multiplied by both the L and the W, so I'm going to divide by both the L and the W. That guy? The H equals V over LW. Are we good? What's the matter, Lee? Did you get extra sleep last night? Because you're not yawning today. Usually you have a little yawn going on at some point during class. You doing all right? Yeah? You have a meet today, don't you? No, next week? Monday. All right. All right, so now let's scroll back and let's go over some of these do it answers and make sure that you did those well and see if we can find any problems with any of those. Last class really kicked butt on number 1. I'm hoping that you kicked butt as well. In number 1, negative 3 to the 0, what does that equal, everybody? Negative 1, right? Are we good with that? Right? Anything to the 0 is 1 except 0. So 3 to the 0 is 1, and then I have to negate it, negative 1. Now, the next one is a bit of a more challenging question that we've only begun to conquer lately. The rule is to subtract exponents because we're dividing here, so I'm going to get 10 to the negative 8. But what about this 1 divided by 4? So many kids write 4 here. Is it 4? No, it's not. This is 1 divided by 4. That's a quarter, guys. If you build a Gazinta house, you have to do this. Or you just remember a quarter is equal to 0.25. But can I leave my answer like that? No, I can't. So I have to multiply by 10 here. So I'm going to divide by 10 here, and I get 2.5 times 10 to the negative 9. Okay? How many people got that right? 1, 2, 3. All right, 4. Be prepared on the next quiz. Just saying. 5, okay. Oh, question. Okay, got it.
How did you get negative?
Oh, because when I do 2 minus 10, I have a positive 2 and a negative 10. Altogether, that's 8 negatives. Okay? All right. Which is not equivalent to 1/9? C. Because if I add the exponents, I get 3 squared. What does 3 squared equal, guys? 9. It's not 1/9, it's 9. Okay? And then there are 3 equations where I have to solve for the variable. I'm going to just show you the steps of each right now. And if you missed any of them, let's see if it relates back to those 3 that we did. These are just like the ones on the homework from last night. You're just dying to get kicked in the knee, right? Or kicked in your foot? All right. Now, this is the same size situation, so I get all my n's together. That's 5 n's plus 3, because positive 7 negative 4 is 3 equals negative 17. Do the opposite. 5n is negative 20. Divide by 5. N is negative 4. Okay. Yeah, you know, I'm looking up and I see 3 different people. I looked at 3 people. I looked at 4 people, actually. And 3 of them were copying it down and 1 didn't do it. These should all be done on all your papers all the time. There's a certain flow with how things go in class, so it's all interconnected. This is an opposite side situation, minus 4h 3h plus 6 is equal to negative 15 minus the 6. Oh, I shouldn't have written it that way. 3h die equals negative 21 divided by 3. H is negative 7. Okay. And then this one, this works out to be 3. Okay. All right, folks, listen, we did the same thing as yesterday. New stuff on Monday, a test on Halloween. Hasta la vista, vaya con Dios, toodaloo, ta-ta, arrivederci. Smile a lot, ciao, arrivederci, adios amigos y amigas. Cheerio. All right, let's look up your average and see how you're doing. But first I have to stop the recording here. Otherwise the whole world will know your average, and I'm sure you don't